Should you tell your employer about your mental health? The short answer is, it depends. The statistics in Canada and the United States are that 1 in 5 people will experience a mental health challenge at some point in their lifetime. And this could be anything ranging from mild symptoms to something that is completely debilitating. Another statistic says that by the time a person is 40 years old, 50% of people in North America will have experienced a mental illness. And at the end of 2020, studies have shown that things are getting worse because of the pandemic and because people are not able to get the help and the treatment that they require. Things have been made much more difficult and complicated, and with the isolation and the not being able to have the support and the social experiences that people are used to having, everything is even more difficult. And the stigma around mental health continues. I'm Jen Swanson, your career coach, and this topic was a viewer suggestion. It's a very loaded question, and the answer, it depends on a number of things that I'm going to talk about in this video. I'm going to offer you some things that will hopefully help you in determining whether or not you should tell your employer about your mental health challenge and exactly how much you should tell. Please hit that like button so that YouTube knows to share this video with more people who need it. Consider sharing it yourself so that the more we can have open conversations about the topic of mental health, the more we can lessen the stigma and help more people. So firstly, what does telling your boss or your manager or your employer depend on? Well, it depends on whether or not you trust this person. What is the relationship like? Are you comfortable having a private conversation with this person about your needs and about your mental health and what's happening? It depends on whether or not you will feel supported by this person. It depends on whether or not you think your telling is going to damage future opportunities that you might have in the workplace, which should never be something you have to worry about, but regrettably still happens. And I know that it can be scary sometimes to reveal something about yourself that maybe you've been really good at not revealing in the past. It can be hard to know how to proceed, and in some ways it can feel like a bit of a crapshoot. I totally get that. You would think that because so many of us are affected by mental illness that the stigma would be lessening. And in some places and in some contexts, it is, thank goodness. Thankfully, there are some wonderful advances happening in the realm of mental health and mental wellness, and let's hope that that just continues. And so I'm hoping that this will add a little tiny bit to that well of possibility as we all try to move this forward. And yet I would still tread carefully until you are sure you are in a place of support and respect. Now, you might first want to consult with your physician or your healthcare provider in order to find out the best course of treatment for the mental illness that you have. It would be important to know if taking time off or maybe reducing how many days a week you work, or if you need to go on some medications that will have some consequences, or if you need to go into a treatment center for a while. It would be really helpful to know exactly what kind of support you need, if you don't know that already, before you approach your manager, your boss, or your human resources, your HR person. So I always suggest that the best place to start is with your healthcare practitioner. I suffered for several years from panic attacks. It was almost a form of PTSD from a toxic work environment, and the work environment had me driving all over to different places, over bridges and through tunnels. And so the brain is a funny thing. What happened for me is, long after I stopped working at that place, the panic attacks would come whenever I was driving over a bridge or through a tunnel. and it felt like I couldn't breathe and my heart would race, and I had to really focus and concentrate driving so that I was safe. And some of the ways that I coped with it when I had to get over a bridge or through a tunnel, which there are lots of where I live, is by having water that I could sip, because if you're drinking water, then you're able to breathe. Hands-free, phoning somebody and talking to them on the phone and listening to their conversation, which was distracting me enough from the panic attack so that I could drive and talk and have something else to focus on as I got through that little space. And I mean, they weren't long, right? Not long bridges, not very long tunnels, but it was that whole response that just threw my brain into, and then my body into, a panic. And panic attacks are pretty scary if you've never had one. I hope you never do. I did see a therapist for a few sessions, and I also learned that the panic attacks were worse when I didn't have enough sleep, and when I was very tired, I would be more susceptible to them. And over time, and with lots of effort, they lessened and lessened and lessened, and now they happen very occasionally. They still happen sometimes, but it's often when I haven't slept very well or am feeling extra stressed about other things. So they're still there, but I can most of the time manage them. I do remember calling in once when I was supposed to be somewhere at a meeting, and I remember calling in and asking if I could join the meeting virtually, which in the before times was unusual and rare. Nowadays, no one would think twice about joining a meeting by Zoom or even hosting the whole thing by Zoom. But I just did not have the capacity to safely get myself from A to B to be able to join this meeting. So I think I just phoned in and joined it that way, and it was perfectly fine. But it was an accommodation that was made for me because I was just feeling too stressed and too tired and was worrying about possible panic attacks in my journey. And so that was one way that I felt accommodated and supported, was that I was able to do that. I felt safe and comfortable asking to be able to have a virtual meeting. Here are some more things to consider. Legally, you do not have to disclose that you have a mental illness, and your employer is not allowed to ask. They're not allowed to ask that in an interview, and they're not allowed to ask that in the course of your employment with them. What you disclose is completely up to you, and there is legislation I know in Canada and in the United States, and likely in other places if you are watching this from somewhere else, that protects the employee from having to disclose things and from also being let go or fired because of it. So check the legislation and find out what the rules are in the state, the province, the country that you are working in. Now, having said that, if you have a good relationship with your employer, then it can be, or your human resources person, then it is to your advantage to let them know what you are struggling with. And telling is an absolutely good idea if you do feel that trust and you do feel that support and you do feel that it would be a safe thing to do. Because if the employer is interested in a healthy employee, then of course they're going to be accommodating and offer time off or flexibility or lessening the workload or whatever it is that can help you get back to being the productive, happy, healthy self that you are. There might even be some programs offered through your employee assistance program, such as therapy or counseling or coaching sessions. And many companies have these programs built in that you can access. And so that is something that your human resources, your HR people can let you know about. What are the services that are built into your benefits package that you might be able to access and do so confidentially. What I would suggest is that you book an appointment with your HR department or with your boss or manager, and do that at a time that is convenient for them in a place that is private. Then I would suggest that you practice what it is you are going to say. You can write it all out. You can even begin by writing a letter if you don't feel comfortable enough or don't trust yourself enough to just say what needs to be said and not too much more. You might want to write it all out, and maybe you want to start by sending it as an email and then follow up after that. But if you are doing it in person, I suggest you practice what it is that you're going to say. And again, you don't have to tell them everything. You can just say that I'm having some personal issues I'm struggling with. I have spoken with my healthcare provider. It has been recommended to me that and whatever they recommended, plan that all out so that you have a strategy, so that you have an idea of what it is that you're going to say, either in writing or in person when you have this meeting. Now, the advantage of talking to HR is that they know all about this. They are experts in their field, and they have all the services, and they know what the company can offer you as far as assistance goes. So that might even be the best place to start, and then speak with your boss and say, I've spoken with my physician, I've spoken with HR, and this is what's being recommended, and would you be able to support me in this? If you are having a conversation with boss, maybe you don't have an HR department, I would suggest beginning without blaming, without accusing, without complaining about the workload or anything like that. It might be best to start with what is happening for you and do that by using your I language. And if you're not sure what I language is, it is a communication tool. And I have a podcast that I recorded quite some time ago that I will try and find and link so that you can listen to that. If you can't find it there, you can also look up iLanguage, and I'm sure there are lots of things written about it. But it is a way of talking about your own experience, your own perspective. And again, you don't have to disclose very much. You can say, I'm having some mental health issues. I am feeling anxious, I'm feeling stressed, I have a struggle with depression, and I really feel like I need to take whatever the course of treatment is that you want to outline, and I'm wondering if you would support me in that. So you're using your I language and you're talking about it from your perspective. So the question, should you tell your boss about your mental health? Again, it depends. I really hope that you can. My wish and my hope for you is that once you do have the conversation, either with HR or your boss or manager or both or all, that you will be listened to, and that you will feel heard, and that you will get the support and the care that you need so that you can get back to feeling healthy and productive. That is my sincere wish for you, my friend. Please consider subscribing, and do share this video with someone else who might need to hear this today. And next, I have a video for you on how to stay physically healthy in the workplace. I will see you over there.